Yeah.
Okay, we're getting ready to go live.
All right.
Okay.
Act official. Wait a minute.
Let's make sure I go to the right place here. All right, give me a second, and then you'll see when in the right hand or left hand corner, or let's see, one of the corners, it'll show you that we're up live as soon as we get going here. I have to put the title in. All right, we're going live. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Women. So we're so excited to have you today. I'm going to introduce my cohorts really quickly here, and then we're going to get to our guest. But first of all, I'd like to introduce to you Pamela Schwartz. Pamela, talk a little bit about who you are and why you're here.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Retired neuromuscular therapist for 20 years. And I specialize in the alleviation of chronic pain, but now I am a professional network marketer, and I help people find a better way through their physical needs and their financial needs. And I really think that it's important for us as women to lift each other up so that we can find a better way to create a way for our families and for ourselves.
Nice. Very good. See, that like right off the cuff. I love it. I love it. All right, Trish, introduce yourself and why are you here? Oh, I'm gonna do the count.
Okay, let's try that again.
Okay.
I am Trish.
Like halfway through your introduction. Oh, but wait, nobody can hear me.
Why? I've been a personal trainer, group fitness instructor for 33 years, nutritional therapist for 3. And what I really love though about those 2 things is I get to empower people. And I'm really passionate about empowering women, especially over 50, because I'm one of them. And, you know, life can be brutal. And then you wake up and you say, okay, now what? And that's the point that I want to help them with the now what.
Nice. I love it. And I'm Marianne, and you know, I have been a business owner, and I have wanted to help people all my life. My mom told me when I was at a very young age I would be an entrepreneur, and I didn't know what that meant, but and someday I would own my own business, and she was right. And I did, but I really felt like I needed more purpose in my life. And so I kind of went on this journey of discovery. I call it my discovery, my journey of self-discovery. And it led me to network marketing, which was the last thing in the world I ever thought that I would be doing and be passionate about, but it really fit my goals, and which was to have coffee with my friends and get paid while I was doing it. So if you've got big goals like me, then you might end up doing something like this. With that, I want to introduce to you our guest this evening, Amy Kosh. And while you could read her bio, you know, you can get all the education and the certificates and all that kind of stuff. But what I want to tell you is that I met her and immediately I felt connected. We had coffee, and honestly, we couldn't stop smiling. There were so many things that we had in common, and just some great growth I felt like came out of that conversation, and just finding out who she really was and who she is in her own profession. I was so excited when I asked her to be on the call that she is going to bring you guys some really cool stuff. And this is something that she's been doing for a long time. So it's not like she just like came out of the woodwork and said, hey, I'm going to give you something on resilience, because this is something that she's been working on. So this is going to be a great treat for all of you that are here tonight. And with that, we've got Amy, and I'm going to put you on the spotlight, and I just want you to just go for it. Oh, are you unmuted? Oh, there we go.
I keep trying to unmute myself.
Sorry. We get a little anxious
And
and then we try to help out, and, so.
All right. Okay, good. Hi, nice to meet you all. And yes, it's been such a joy to meet Marianne. I just moved out to this side of the country and I met her really recently, and it was like at first sight, and we've had so much to talk about. And the way that she described this group, I was really excited to hear what you all are doing in this, and to help provide some really useful tips and practical things about how to build resilience and what resilience is and what do we really mean when we talk about resilience. So before we jump into that, let me back up for a minute and introduce myself really briefly, since you all are just meeting me for the first time, and maybe some of you have coffee in your hands or tea at this point. But I'm Amy Kosh, and my company, excellent, Marianne, I love that. So my company is An Unstoppable Life, and I'm a success and leadership and life coach based in positive psychology and resilience. And I help people who are basically too smart for their own good uncover the obstacles holding them back from the ultimate success, radical happiness, and excellent health. And I have to say thank you to Pamela and Trish, because that question of like sitting in the I don't know and the what next and wanting to be of service, those are really three key things to my business and why I became a coach. And you can look on my website, it's anunstoppablelife.com, and you'll see all of the information about me, but I'll tell you briefly, this is my third real career. And I am the above 50, happily. I love it. Every year it gets better. It's amazing. And so I've really been able to take the two careers that I had before this. One was as a university professor teaching photography and digital imaging. And the second was working in the photo industry for a long time in New York. And then concurrent with that, I've been teaching yoga and meditation for 26 years now. So as I became a coach and as I trained in positive psychology, I got to bring all of this together, which is what really excites me about it. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll put some information in the chat for you all to copy, and I'll also get Marianne to post it out. So there's a couple of goodies for you guys just for showing up here today, and I really want to make this useful and fun. So please, as I'm going through, feel free to throw questions in the chat, and we'll all kind of aim to work on this, and that's open to, of course, the other panelists as well. So to start, let's talk about what resilience means. And there's a lot of talk lately about it in terms of community and talking about resilient communities, resilient cities, resilient towns, resilient jobs. But what I'm here to talk about is the personal resilience and how we find ourselves being resilient or not, and what does that actually mean? How do we increase it? So I want to put it in very unscientific terms that are just human, because that's the way that I like to bring everything down from the balcony level right into the street. So we're going to be at the street level for this. So when we talk about resilience, what we're really talking about is allowing ourselves to meet any challenge, understanding that we are capable of seeing it through and that we will grow from the experience. And being resilient means that you get that opportunity to grow forward or to grow into a new mindset. One of the things that people often find themselves doing, especially, we're all in this thing with the COVID-19 and coronavirus and the pandemic, and there's so many different terms for it, and people are referring to it all over. And one of the things that happens in this kind of situation is that we often forget that we actually have a lot of resilience just as human beings. So even if you don't feel particularly resilient right now, your whole body, yourself, the fact that you're a human means that there is an amount of resilience that you already have inherent to you. So you can pat yourself on the back and own that one. And know that you can increase your ability to be resilient by changing one of three things. So if you think of us as a system, because we're the human system, we have a couple of ways we can hack the system. So we can always hack the system by one of three key ways. One is we can change our thinking. One is we can change our behavior. And one is we can change our emotions. Now, the thinking part, that's a little harder as one to start with. So we can, the easier way in, and I love easy. So the easier way in is either to change the way you're feeling about something or the way you're behaving. Because no matter which point on that kind of cycle, whether it's thinking, behavior, or emotions that you change, everything in your system will change based on this new way of being. So one of the key words, and I think Marianne and I talked about this a little bit over coffee, is the word responsibility. Often especially in Western culture, our culture, we really think about that word as meaning, who am I to blame? Like, who can I blame for this thing that happened, right? And if you read the tweets and you read the news and you're on social media at all these days, man, there is a hell of a lot blaming going on, right? And everyone seems to want to blame somebody else or some other bigger entity or some, I've heard all kinds of crazy things going on about blaming. But I mean responsibility, and I want to separate those two words into response and ability. So our ability to respond is 100% all the time. We are always responding. We can't help it. We're responding to the air we breathe. We're responding to the things that we eat or we drink. We're responding to the feel of things on our skin, like our clothes or jewelry, right? We respond to an itch if we feel an itch. So whatever is going on in the world, we have no choice but to respond to it. We're also responding to our physical being. So we're responding to the way we feel when we breathe. I'm sure Trish works with a lot of people in the fitness realm where, people have a tendency to hold their breath and not realize it. And you might have found yourself saying, no, you need to breathe when you lift that, right? So think about the fact that we have this breath, we have heart rate, we have all of these things going on within our bodies that we're really unaware of, but there are parts of our body that are responding, right? So there's part of the response that's internal, and it's 100% all the time, always on, there's no off switch. And then there's the external, and that means responding to events that happen, like being stuck in your house for 3 weeks in a pandemic and not really knowing when it's going to end, or responding to the people around you whom you might want to strangle at this point, or you're really like, oh, I love you even more, right? Or it goes up and down over the course of the day or the week. Or you might be responding to how other people are responding, right? So you also get that interaction because humans co-regulate, and we always are responding to other people, whether we're looking at them on a video chat or we're on the phone with them, or we're standing next to them and not saying anything. We're still responding to them. So all of these are ways that we can respond to people, right? And we respond to everything. And here's where that separation of the word responsibility comes in. We're always responding 100% of the time, but we have the ability to choose our action. And it's in that differentiation between response and ability that resilience grows. So we can introduce this longer space between what we're responding to, how we're responding, and to our ability to choose an action that will leave us feeling successful, happier, calmer, less stressed, less fearful, less frantic. Right? So I'll give you a great example of this whole response and ability thing. And it happened just this afternoon. And you'll probably hear my dog say something in a minute. So if you hear this, woohoo, you'll know it's my husky talking. So this afternoon I was working, and it's a beautiful day here. It's 70 degrees and I'm sitting at my table working, and I've got the door open to the terrace. And all of a sudden, it sounds like there's a live concert in my backyard. some guy was playing the piano and he had it amped up and he's singing, and it's great. It sounded great, except that I was on a client call. So what I had a couple of choices, right? So I'm responding to my client at that moment because my client is my client. That's where my priority is. And still I realized I was kind of distracted because there's this essentially a live concert in my backyard going on. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know where it's coming from. I can't do anything right now because I'm on a call. So I had a choice. I could respond immediately one of several ways. I could have said to the client, hey, can you hang on? I got to go see what's going on, which doesn't feel very good to me because that's letting my client down. Or I could have said, well, let me call you back, right? Again, not such a great choice because, if I was on the other end of that, I wouldn't feel so great to receive, like, let me hang up on you and call you back. No, not going to do that. So my response was, oh, there's live music. Interesting. Great way to bring joy to the neighborhood. Not so great if you're working at home. Finished my call with my client. And then I thought, okay, now what do I want as the outcome? And this is where our ability to choose our actions comes into play. So a lot of people, in fact, this one woman, when I walked around the neighborhood and I figured out this guy was sitting in his garage, literally playing a keyboard with 2 amps, and it sounded great. He's marvelous. He's like in his 70s and he's singing these old golden oldies. It was great, but it was really, really loud. Turns out it was really loud because he's deaf and he doesn't know how loud he was. But as I was standing there, and there's some people across the street and they're all kind of swinging to it and enjoying it. And I'm standing there waiting for him to end the song so I can say, hey, I really, really love what you're doing. I love that you're doing this, but it's the middle of a work day and I've got clients I have to talk to. Can you just lower your volume? So as I'm waiting for the song to end, so I can say this to the guy kind of privately from 6 feet away, this other woman kind of storms up and she looks really upset and she's clearly not happy with this. And she's trying to talk to the guy while he's playing. And so she was being driven by her response. And she hadn't really thought about what her actions were going to get her. So what happened was he couldn't hear her because, first of all, he's pretty deaf, as he kept telling me later. Second of all, the music's really loud. And third of all, she's got to stand 6 feet away. So he's like, I don't know. And he's trying to play and he's like, I don't know what you're saying. And she's getting really pissed off and really upset. So finally, I go over to her and I say, hey, I'm going to ask him to just turn the music down. If you want to go, you can go and I'll take care of it. And she's like, oh, thank you. She walks off and she kind of stomps off. So I wait and it sounds great. I'm like, all right, this sounds great. So I go up and I ask him and he finally understands. I'm just asking him to turn the sound down a little bit and he's cool with it. And I walk off. And as I'm leaving, some of the people across the street are saying, very loudly, well, some people are just joy kills and some people are just, trying to make this whole thing worse. And they're trying to keep us all in this pit of despair. And I thought, okay, here's another chance for me to have a response and then figure out what action is going to take me to where I want to be. So where I wanted to be was I wanted to be calm. I didn't want my heart to be in my throat. And I really didn't want them to think that I had been a joy kill because I'm kind of the opposite of that. So I walked over and I thought, okay, what can I possibly say to this person who's clearly probably not going to listen to me anyhow, but that might at least plant a seed in her brain. And I just said, hey, I just want you to know, I love the music and I didn't ask him to stop playing. I asked him just to turn it down because I've got clients I have to talk to on the phone. And then I walked away and I could hear her still grumbling, but I thought, well, I've said what I needed to say. I didn't get into a fight with anybody. I let it be known what I had done. And so the outcome I was moving towards was feeling calm, feeling grounded, and feeling happy when I walked away. So that when I got back to my house and I could get back on the next call with my next client, I was still calm and centered. So response, and then taking that pause to create the resilience and say, what's the action I want next? So I hope that's a clear kind of delineation about that word responsibility and how that starts to bring in the response of resilience. And resilience is really about looking at what are you responding to? What are you feeling? How does it feel in your body? What's happening with your heart rate? And then deciding what is the next thing I want to do so that I get the outcome I want. And what is that outcome? So naming it really helps. So I'm going to open up. I see, Pam, you said, yeah, you always have to remind your patients to breathe. I love that. So I want to open this up to people. Just throw some questions in, and you guys can jump off mute. But I'd love to have a little bit more open discussion about questions that people have about being resilient. And then I'll do a couple of quick practices so people have some useful tools. So feel free to throw your questions in. Or if you guys have some comments or questions, I'd love to have you guys join in.
Yeah, and I'm going to go look over online.
What were you saying?
She's going to go online.
I'm going to go online and look and see if there's questions.
Yeah, perfect.
Amy, mine is probably one of those tools that you were going to talk about. The habit of taking that breath, right? And learning, okay, I have an ability to respond here during that exhale, right? And get really clear. So what kind of skill sets, what kind of tips do you give your clients to do that? I mean, I realize that, I can't watch the news first thing in the morning because I start doing this. So I'll just watch some comedy, maybe some puppies, and
cat videos.
I want to see your dog. I always watch husky videos.
No, not cat. I was going to say not cat videos because that would get you all like.
No, cats are all right.
Oh,
but so what kind of tools do you give people?
So there are actually two practical physical practices that are really quick to learn and to do. And so I'll just lead you guys through this now, and then you can always come back and watch it later if you don't catch it. So the first one is a 3-part, and it's really 3 breaths. And so you can do it standing, you can do it sitting, you can also do it in public, which is great. So this is a really useful thing. So whenever something happens and you're like, oh, wow, that was something unexpected, right? And then you notice yourself, as Trish, as you said, you notice yourself kind of getting clenched up or really like this, or you find yourself like your throat gets tight, or it's a little hard to breathe, or you feel butterflies, or you feel really pissed off, or your face gets hot, any of those reactions. If you notice them, or you notice that maybe your thoughts have started to spin out, this is the 3-part practice. So, and I'd love it if you guys do it with me. So if you're sitting, just sit with your feet flat on the floor. So you might have to scoot forward a little bit. If you're standing, just stand. And then take a moment and shrug your shoulders a little bit, just loosen them up, especially if you've been sitting in front of the computer, shake your hands out. Okay, close your eyes. And I'm going to close my eyes too, so I'm not the weird person with their eyes open. And with the first breath, notice the height of your body from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet. Just notice your height with that one inhale and exhale. And then with the second inhale and exhale, notice the width of your body from shoulder to shoulder and also front to back. So notice how much space or presence you have in the world. Notice how much space you're actually taking up and what it feels like to be in your body right now. That's breath number 2. Breath number 3, lean back very slightly and imagine that you're leaning back into your experience, your know-how, and your knowledge. That's something that we always have and we often forget to lean into. So those 3 breaths, feel free to open your eyes. So now, how do you guys feel? What's different?
I like the leaning back on that last one because you've taken a couple of breaths, you're grounded in the space that you take up physically, and for me it was just energetically, right? And then when I lean back, it's like, okay, I've got this.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Instead of leaning in with, a negative energy.
Yeah. And I'm a science geek, so I love knowing physically why things happen. So if you notice as you're sitting here, if you notice what happens to your heart rate and your breathing when you lean back even half an inch, and then notice what happens if you lean forward just an inch. And if you do that a couple times, you'll really start to notice how your breath often gets faster, tighter, and higher, and your heart rate goes up when you lean forward. Now think about, when do we lean forward? We lean forward when we're upset or when we're really trying to get somebody to listen to us, right? So there's part of it is energy, and part of it is the physical response our bodies have to leaning forward. And then the physical response they have to leaning backward and being really centered on our feet, or if you're sitting, centered on your sitting bones. So as leaning back into that experience and knowledge also allows your body to relax back and start to trigger the parasympathetic nervous system, which, as many of us already know, is the place that we want to stay calm. It will keep us grounded. It will keep us centered and less stressed. So even just a half an inch in one direction or the other will make a difference. Right? So that's practice number one. Practice number two is a really good one because it's really quick to do. And so when something happens, again, the situation is, oh my gosh, I'm responding to this thing that's not what I wanted or expected. Notice what shape your hands have taken. So are they doing this? Are they doing this? Right? If they're pointing up or they're in fists, right? Shake them out. That's all you have to do is just shake your hands out and shake them below your hips.
Oh.
So if you shake them up here,
little what, spirit fingers?
the spirit fingers.
And why below your hips?
So two reasons. One, you want to shake them below your hips because it actually helps blood flow. Right? So that's number one. That's the science geeky part, right? Number two is because you're moving downward, you're literally, and if you're standing up, you'll feel it even more. You're pulling your whole body down towards the ground more. And you're reminding your body physically, stay grounded, stay centered. It's also really hard to stay centered if you're shaking up here, right? Now, here's the flip side of that. And I've gotten CEOs to do this, and they always laugh at me and they say, I'm not going to do that. And then they do it. And now they do it all the time, right? So if you're really having a bad moment and you're really upset and you feel totally overwhelmed, what you do is you stand up and you put your hands over your head really tall, right? I'm going to lower my hands so you can see my hands, but you put your hands up really tall and you go like this. La, 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 la. And you do that until you feel so silly that you have to start laughing. I'm not kidding. I've gotten CEOs to do it because they're like, I don't know what to do about this, that, something's gone kablooey at their company. And I'm like, just do this first. And I always sound very serious. I say, put your right hand up, put your left hand up, wave your hands back and forth way above your head, and then say la, la, la. Now do it faster. Now do it faster. Now do it faster. By the time they realize what they're doing, they're laughing so hard, and they realize it's not a situation that they have any control over, or they realize what control they do have. So that's another quick trick. It's also great. It works with 4-year-olds really well too. So if you have kids at home and they get upset, have them do that, because they'll look at you at first like, what are you doing? And they get so interested, often they'll forget why they're upset in the first place. So that's trick number 2. I want to check in with Pam. Was there anything, questions that people had at this point?
Not yet on the other one. I know there are a couple of watch parties that are going on. So if anybody has any questions, please make sure to send them back over to us, because we'll be happy. You can text them to us, or you can post them in the original feed, and then we're checking in on that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks for checking.
Yeah.
So those are 2 really quick practices in terms of building, just being able to reground yourself and have that space between response and ability. The other part of this whole building the resilience and that space that we create between responding and taking action. So I want to talk about the resilience that we're building and why we want to think about it in a slightly different way than maybe you've thought about it before. being able to be resilient means to be able to bounce back, but it doesn't mean to be able to bounce back and come back exactly the same as you were before. In some ways, you really don't want that. What you want is to bounce back from something that happens and grow in the process. So if we can think about, you know, the challenges of the pandemic as horrible things that are happening to us, or we can think about them like challenges, and we get to be really creative in how we meet them and what we do with them. And the more we start to be creative and bring curiosity to this, the more resilience we start to have. So noticing what kinds of things do you find yourself doing over the course of the day or the week, and maybe even making, I'm a big fan of lists, so maybe even making a list of, you know, oh, I see that I spend, you know, an hour every day on the news, or I spend 2 hours a day checking Facebook, or I spend 3 hours a day reading emails from my non-scientific friends who are freaking me out every time I read their emails. Okay? So notice, just for a day or two, just jot down, what are you spending your time on? And then pick an evening, maybe on the third evening, grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee or a tea or, you know, whatever, ho-ho, whatever works for you. And look at your list and notice, what are the things you're spending time on that really aren't moving you forward, but are holding you in this place of fear or frustration or anxiety? What are the things that you're spending time on during the day that are contributing to you not feeling resilient? And then can you let go of some of those? Or maybe can you just not do them for as long? Like if you're spending an hour on the news, you know, at first thing in the morning and it's really stressing you out, could you just spend 10 minutes instead? Would that be enough for you to feel like, okay, I've kept up with it? Or maybe you could spend 10 minutes on a different news site and find one that maybe triggers you less. Right? So you want to be getting good factual information, but you also want to be bringing curiosity and this idea of, how can I use this challenge to grow? Right? How can I create change that moves me towards where I want to be at the outcome? And the outcome is really the end of our lives, right? Because we're not talking about, this is changing everything. And it's not the first time that human beings have been asked to grow and change and, you know, think about what we're doing, but now we're all having to do it together. Normally, we do our growth really privately, right? We might tell our friends or our partners, oh, hey, I figured this thing out I've been doing, right? Or, oh yeah, I got past, you know, picking the wrong guy, or I got past, you know, yelling at my kid when he does this, or whatever it is. We often do our growth really quietly and really privately. And we have an opportunity now, with the way that everything is happening globally, all the humans on the planet at the same time are being asked to grow. And we're being asked to step into this growth mindset as a whole planet. I mean, that's really amazing to me. We have this opportunity to really appreciate each other for the growth that we're all having to go through right now, and that we all are going through, because frankly, there's no way to avoid it. So when we start to look at what are the things that will help you grow in a way that is really moving you forward. So again, look at some of what's keeping you, you know, like kind of stuck. So that list is great. But I'm also a really big fan of gratitude. And this idea about really appreciating. So I have a great teacher, Tal Ben Shahar, and he always used to say this great tongue twister, which I will teach you now. When you appreciate, whatever you appreciate appreciates. So I'll say it one more time. When you appreciate, whatever you appreciate appreciates. So for instance, if I appreciate the fact that there is actually a young woman who is about 5 blocks away from me, and every morning she opens the Ziggy's coffee. And she takes great care to pass people their coffee cups, and she changes her glove every time. She's amazing. And she's there every morning at like 5:30. It's crazy. It was 20 degrees out the other morning, and she was there and she was happy, and people were, you know, very patiently waiting in line. And when I got up to her, I said, hey, I really appreciate the fact that you do this every morning. she's a 20 something and, but she's doing it with this real sense of purpose and usefulness and cheeriness at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, which was wonderful. Well, I realized the next morning when I went, because that's where I go for my coffee, because I don't get to see people much except for Marianne, right? At this point, except my dog. So I walk my dog and I go grab my coffee. And I realized that there's often the same couple people standing in this long line because we're all 6 feet apart. The guy behind me thanked her the next morning. So whether he heard me say it and it put it in his head, or whether he just thought, oh, I should really thank this person. But I wonder, it started, it got me wondering, like, how many people thanked that woman that day or that week because somebody else heard him do it and then thought, oh, that's a really good idea. So while you're stuck at home, right? If you're home with your family or your partners or whoever you're home with, your dog, your cat, doesn't really matter. But if you show them appreciation, so maybe a better habit than, and Trish, I'm going to pick on you because you said about what you can't watch the news in the morning. I love that. Don't do it.
No.
But try this.
New Year's resolution.
Yes. So wait until 10. Right? But what about if when you start your day, however you start your day, if you're sitting down with whoever you're sitting down with, to say, hey, here's one thing I really appreciate about you. And trade appreciations as a way to start the day. Notice as you do this over the course of the week. Now, if you live alone, as I do, I say it to my cat and my dog every day. And then, because I'm nuts, I imagine what they say back to me. So I imagine that my dog says, wow, I really appreciate the fact that you walk me every single morning at 5:30, no matter what the weather is. And I imagine that my cat says, Amy, I am so appreciative of the fact that you gave me 3, and I've just lost the name, catnip toys, that you gave me 3 catnip toys because I keep losing them around the house. Okay? And I appreciated that my dog is hysterically funny and cracks me up all the time, and that my cat actually thinks she's a dog, so she also cracks me up. But when we practice this appreciation, it can be that simple. I know it sounds really odd if you've never done it, but try it every morning for a week or try it every evening. Kids do this really well, and they will come up with things they appreciate that you would never have imagined, right? So whatever you appreciate, also, you get more of, because that's how humans work. When we focus on, oh, I love that, Trish. You said, I appreciate my bed and my roof every night. Yes, absolutely. So one of the things, and again, this is positive psychology based data, and I'm kind of a data geek. So one of the things that they found when they did studies was, first of all, we know humans do not multitask. We know that we can only focus on one thing at a time, right? Literally, we can switch quickly, but we literally are focusing on one thing at a time. So the more we focus on something, the more we see that thing. So the more we focus on what's going wrong, what's not in our control, what's not happening, I don't like this, the more we will see things that we don't like, can't control, and can't do anything about. The more we focus on the things we can control, that we do like, that we do want to create, the more we create those things. And this isn't woo-woo, magical, wishful thinking. This is practical, data-driven, hard science. So think about this. Whenever you're in a relationship and the person you're with drives you nuts, you always have a choice. Again, responsibility. You have a choice of how you want to respond to that person. Now, you could yell at them and say you're an idiot. You could throw a shoe, right? Start a whole fight. Or you could listen to what they say, however they say it, right? Because they're probably frustrated, so they're probably yelling. Listen to what they say, check yourself, shake your hands out, and then simply appreciate what they told you and say, oh, wow, I hear that. That buys you the time to then figure out what's the best action for you to take in that situation. So if you're buying time, it doesn't mean you're capitulating. It doesn't mean you're caving. It doesn't mean you're not holding your own boundaries. But it does mean that you're letting that person be heard, which is probably what they wanted most in the first place. And the second is that once you've said, hey, I heard that, then you get to ask a really great question. And so here's one of my all-time favorite coaching questions. Is there anything else that you need to tell me about this? Not a question most people will go to when they're being yelled at. But if you stop the flow and you let the other person know that they're being heard and that you actually do want to hear what they have to say, I guarantee you 50% of the time or more, if you give them that space and then you say, wow, I heard you, I heard that. Is there anything more you want to tell me about that? And you have to really mean it. There's the thing, right? You can't say, is there anything else you want to tell me about that? Really sarcastically does not work. Don't do that, right? But genuinely asking, most of the time, most people will stop in the middle of what they're doing and they'll kind of reel it in. And then they will tell you what's really bugging them. Because most of the time, what they're yelling about is not really what's bugging them. Most people aren't, upset about hanging the stockings over the curtain rod or the socks on the floor. They're mad about something else, or they're feeling like their need isn't getting met. So when you can invite that question of, hey, is there something else going on? What else can you tell me about that? They will tell you what's really happening. And then you get to address the real situation that's happening, or the misunderstanding, or whatever it is. So there's another genuinely authentic way to approach that. And again, what you're doing is you're shifting your focus from what's not working, which is what they're telling you, to what could be or is working, which is your own capacity to listen. Because your capacity to listen is always there, right? That's part of how we respond. Does that make sense? Thoughts, questions?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And, I think that so many times, and especially in this time, people are just, so much is going on that their first reaction is just to respond with whatever their emotion is at that point, because of whatever, I didn't get toilet paper yet again, or 12 times, and then somebody says something to them and they're just like, do you know what I'm going through here? But I like the kind of the pausing and talk a little bit more. We're talking a little bit about the news and feeding our minds with all this negativity. And a lot of people that I know are, especially during this time right now, it's almost like they're addicted to the drama of it all.
Yes,
they're putting so much of their energy, right, into all of this. And it's nothing but confusion, because you hear one thing one time, one thing the other time. And so what would you, other than, I know you tell people not to watch the news, but they still.
Well, so I don't mean don't watch the news ever.
Yeah.
And you named it, actually. So that physical experience of having our breath shorten and our heart rate go up, that is the same experience that we also call excitement, right? So anxiety and excitement take the same form in the human body. It's really about how we name it. And it is an addiction that happens, because what happens when those hormones get released and all that chemistry is flowing around your body, your brain doesn't know whether it's feeling anxiety or excitement unless you name it. But your body knows, ooh, this feels really interesting, and I like interesting. And the more of that stress hormone that you get, your body starts to get used to it, which is a form of an addiction. So you're addicted to the feeling of being stressed out. Crazy as it sounds, that's what happens physiologically. You become addicted to this emotion of being upset, because the emotion of being upset brings up this physical feeling of physical excitement, which your body is like, ooh, yeah, I'm used to this. I like this. Yes, neuropeptides. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So it is this, one of the ways that you have to deal with this is to recognize that you're now kind of stuck in this cycle of, oh, I got to feed that emotional, right? I got to feed that bodily addiction to this heightened sense. And so some of the things you can do in order to stop that are the really basic things we started with, which is just take 3 breaths. Notice your height, notice the width across your body, notice the presence you're taking up in the world, and then lean back into your experience. And by virtue of leaning back again, you're starting to trigger that feeling of being grounded and centered, and less of that excitement. And it's a process. It's you know, you have to practice it a couple times. It's not going to come just like that. But that's one thing that we can do. And then a second, you know, I'm really practical. So I really like to find the factual amongst all of the crazy, chaotic people. You know, there's lots of people giving their opinions, but I would suggest, and it really is the smartest thing to do, is to find the maybe 2 or 3 at most reliable, fact-based services. So whether that is newspapers or whether that's online or whatever form it's taking, right? If it's talking heads, you know, there's a couple of really great different websites. Also, you know, your local news website, I mean, like government news website, like colorado.gov has some really great factual information, and it's very up to date. And I'm fairly certain that almost every state has that at this point. So finding, you know, a news outlet that is global. So perhaps you don't want to watch, you know, the news outlet from your local station, but you do want to watch like the BBC or Al Jazeera or API or any of the global networks, because they're going to give you a little bit more factually based and more balanced in terms of what's happening globally, what we need to consider. And then the other thing I would suggest is to look at the CDC site, because it is useful and practical, and it is factually based most of the time. And then the other thing to look at is a financial site. So find a financial site that has a calm tone and that presents the information financially in terms of what's going on financially in the world in a way that makes sense to you. So Motley Fool is a great one. Peak Prosperity is a great one. There are a lot of really good, calm, factual sites out there. And I think if you have a better sense of what's happening globally, what's happening locally via your, you know, local state, and I mean state when I say local, and what's happening financially in the world, you'll feel like you have the right amount of information. It's not going to be alarmist, and you're going to have a better understanding about how to put those 3 pieces together. Much more useful than, oh, Business Insider is a great one. Dave Ramsey, love him. Yep, he's great. Although I wish he wouldn't shout as much, but I do love him. Right? Mr. Money Mustache is another one. That's a really good site for a kind of amalgam of a whole bunch of things. But knowing, you know, what's happening in your state in terms of the pandemic, what's happening in terms of the globe with what's going on, and what's happened in the financial world globally as well as in the US. Those 3 pieces put together, I think you'll feel a lot easier and a lot more clear about, okay, so here's what's going on. It's all factual. I have these ways that I can calm myself down. I have a couple of tools and techniques, and I'll throw a couple more in, access to more in the chat. But also, then it gives you this, like, you get to choose, what future do I want to create? So I'm aware of the time too, so I want to make sure that I give you this other piece. So the last practical thing that I can recommend you do, and it's amazingly effective, but it does take some thought for the first 7 days. So while you are sitting here, and maybe before you go to bed tonight, or after you watch this, wherever you are, whenever you watch it, sit down for just 5 minutes and decide for yourself, what kind of a world do you want to live in tomorrow? So it might be a joyous world, or it might be a compassionate world, or it might be a thoughtful world, or a polite world, or it might be a happy world, or it might be a peaceful world. But whatever you decide you want the world to be like tomorrow, when you wake up tomorrow, be that way. So for me, I've always choose joy. I want the world to be a joyous place. It's a lot of why I do talks like this, because the more people who know, then the more people can, be calmer, be happier, be more joyous. But it's also up to me to be joyful every day, as much as possible, as often as I can remember to do it. And in the beginning, when I was practicing this, there were times when I found myself cursing under my breath and going, God damn it, I wish that person had done this, or, oh, I can't believe that guy did that, right? But the practice has allowed me, and I really see it more now, much more now than ever before. And it's been, a number of years of practicing. But I can walk out of my house, and it's why I can walk my dog in any weather at 5:30 in the morning. It doesn't matter if it's 16 degrees and sleeting, I walk my dog, and I actually enjoy it. And I enjoy what I'm doing. And I enjoy weird as it might sound, I actually enjoy the fact that I am stuck in my house, and at least in my yard for most of the day, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of people. Because what I also figured out was that since I don't have the option to go to the coffee shop to work in the morning, though I miss my friends there terribly, and it was always fun to kind of work at a table with other people working, it's allowed me to start to write a book that I've been holding off on for a year and a half. And so there's a great deal of joy for me in finding that extra time. I normally would have spent 2 hours every morning getting some work done, but now I get to spend 2 hours finishing a book I've been trying to write. So again, whatever you choose for yourself, however you want the world to be when you wake up tomorrow, you have to start being that. So be happy, be joyful, be calm, be compassionate or polite or silly or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter what it is, but what you will start to find as you do this every day is that all of the things that have happened up until now in your life are because of the way you chose to be up until now. So when you start to see what the change is, and to see what being joyful or happy or silly or lighthearted or compassionate or thoughtful or any of these other things is, you will also start to see where in the past you were really holding yourself back by being a different way. And the different way was a way that you chose to be. So you get to choose every single morning, every single minute. You get to choose how you want to be in the world now, and what kind of a world do you want to help create. And being resilient is a big part of that. So again, to go back, and I'm going to steal something from Brene Brown because I love that she mentioned this. I'm a huge reader of things. And what she talks about early on in her first book was that the dictionary definition of vulnerability means to be able to withstand being wounded. The dictionary definition of being vulnerable means to be able to withstand being wounded. And the dictionary definition of being invulnerable actually means that you're so brittle you'll break. So when we think about being resilient, we're really also talking about being vulnerable. Because being resilient means that we're encouraging our own growth. We're not trying to be the same as we were yesterday. We're trying to step up to whatever's happening in the world right now, to bring that sense of joy or compassion or whatever it is we want to be in the world. And we want to grow through the challenges that are occurring right now. So that's resilience. And so I hope that you guys have all found this useful. I'm noticing that we have a couple minutes left. I want to throw some information into the, I'll throw it in the chat, and we can also throw it onto the Facebook page.
If you write it here, I'll copy it over there.
Perfect. So a couple of quick things. Again, I'm Amy Kosh. I'm a success, leadership, and life coach, and I'm based in positive psychology and resilience. And if you are interested in some other techniques, if you go to my website, anunstoppablelife.com, and we'll write it in the chat for you. If you go there and you sign up for my newsletter, you'll get 8 days of downloads about resilience. There's a toolkit, there's a workbook, it's all free. If you get sick of me emailing, which I don't do very often, you can always unsubscribe. And there are a couple other cool little things I'll throw in there. But that's really a way that my whole website is really about being a resource for people. Also, if you have any questions about resilience or vulnerability or coaching, or just how do I figure my way through this, please feel free to go to my website and email me. You can email me directly from the website. There's lots of information there for you, but if you have a particular question, I love it when people ask me questions. I'm happy to answer them. And I'll also put a link in if you just want to chat with me for 15 minutes and throw some questions at me on a chat. You're absolutely welcome to hit me up and jump on a call that way too. So I'll put the link in the chat as well. And I want to thank Marianne for pulling this together tonight. This was amazing to have this opportunity to speak with everybody. And my whole purpose in life really is to help people see the world in a different way. And for me, it's to make the world a lot more joyous. So thank you for the opportunity to do this. And I'm really grateful for you and what you guys are all doing too. So, and to meet you, Trish and Pam. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
really quick, because Amy and I talked about this and we figured we might be opening up some things here during the conversation and some of this training. And so she has said that she would come back in 2 weeks, and we'll put her into the closed group and people can be more open. So we'll do a Zoom, people can come to that. Does that still work for you, Amy?
Oh, absolutely. I would love that. And just so we make it perfectly explicit, when we do the closed group, I will follow HIPAA standards. There will be complete confidentiality. Nothing gets repeated. Nothing gets reposted. That's a completely private kind of Q&A/coaching session for that particular group.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. We appreciate that so much. And I'm really excited. And so those of you that were able to come today, we will have it in our Facebook page, which is Empowered Women, Empowering Women. It is a closed group. So if you want to join it, just request to join. We've got 2 weeks to get you guys in there. We'll be back. Let's see, April 20th. We'll be back. Oh,
what day is it?
I was supposed to be leaving for Costa Rica.
Oh, I know. I saw
Trish
that.
and I were.
420 for you Colorado girls.
Yeah, 420.
Oh, didn't even think about that.
Oh my goodness. I know. I swear, like Trish and I, we went to San Diego. No, you weren't with me. It was Jackie and somebody else. We go to San Diego. We get out, like the Uber comes and picks us up at the airport. And the first thing the guy goes is, do you guys want to go to a dispensary? And I said, what? He goes, do you guys want to hit the dispensaries on the way back to the hotel? And we're like, we're from Colorado. And he goes, all right, we'll bypass that. But, it's just so funny because we just have that reputation, even though you can do it anywhere.
It's the same thing. Yeah.
What's that?
I just moved from Asheville. It's the same thing there right now.
Because we're in the Mile High.
Yeah. I'm like,
Colorado. Anyway.
And look at Trish's wall. 420.
I know.
Oh, that was her race number.
Race number.
Come on now.
I got to tell you, that whole number thing was a big deal. And I tried to get a number I wanted. They gave Trish the 420 and told me, oh no, we can't give you any number you want. You have to take the number we give you.
And I have to just jump in real quick and say, and what just happened is a perfect example of when you notice something, you then create more of it. Because we talked about 420, we noticed all the connections, and then we noticed that number right behind her, which somebody might not have noticed if we hadn't already been thinking about, oh, that number 420, right?
That's so funny.
Yeah.
What we appreciate appreciates.
Right. And it just keeps showing up. So I love that. Thank you guys so much. I'm also doing my the Magic series, which is all about the attitude of gratitude. So much of what Amy talked about, we are doing daily lessons there, and it's been really fun. We talk about magic fairy dust, which and how you can bless people and what have you. So I'm doing that in the morning. That's over at Images Within Facebook page. So go over there, check that out. Check out Amy's website. Check out the free stuff. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks. Remember, it's going to be on the closed Empowered Women, Empowering Women, and it will be a Zoom. So it'll be very interactive, and again, very, you know, private. So if you've got some things we want to work out with Amy, so be sure and do that, because she has offered to do this, and this is amazing.
Yes,
all right, you guys.
I've had
Anybody
lots
else want to say anything before we're out of here?
I just want to say thank you again for reminding the reminder of the Brene Brown
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
with
I love
vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we
We're
forget.
huge Brene Brown fans.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got oh no,
Yeah.
she's over there.
And
All right.
vulnerability and resilience are part of the same thing.
Yeah.
The more you allow yourself to be vulnerable, the more resilience you have, because you are allowing your own growth.
So do we get to see your dog?
She's sleeping in the corner, but yes, I will.
Oh,
We want to see that. Oh,
hi, baby.
sweetie.
What do you think, Velo? She's like, yeah, I had a hard day.
Yeah. I went on a walk.
Let me
You
tell you
know,
about
I
what the cat did.
chased the ball. I'm
She's
ready for
usually
it.
walking around with very perky ears, so maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right, you guys. Love
right.
all of you.
Thank you, Amy. That was
Thank you.
wonderful.
All right.
You
We'll
all.
talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, I stopped the live, but I didn't end the meeting. So I'll end the meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Good night.
Good night. Love you.
Love you.